Show, NorthJerseySports.com's original multimedia series talking all things wrestling across North Jersey. This is Season 8, Episode 7, and it's all about the state sectional team tournament. I am Corey Doviak, being joined by my cast of many. Although we are missing our sterling co-host once again, Kenny Sarajan, still away on assignment on a secret mission for the Armenian Embassy out of New York City. Hopefully he will be rejoining us next week. But we have plenty of, a great panel anyway, of experienced insiders on the North Jersey wrestling scene, starting with Pascack Valley head coach Tommy Gallione. Tommy, how are you?
Good, Corey. How you doing?
Doing very well. I was there this evening as your beloved Indians took care of business on senior night against Demarest. That was a good show for you boys.
Yeah, it was a nice night for the seniors. Good group of kids, you know. I was glad you were able to finally attend a wrestling match at Pascack Valley instead of a basketball game. It's always nice.
Hey, don't worry about it. I had a guy there for the girls' game that took place before the wrestling, so I was covered on...
Sure you did.
I was covered on both ends. And, you know, the next guy I got to bring on is the Cardinal of Bergen County Wrestling, and he's been out taking on all comers there with his Westwood Cardinals, Mike Atanasio. I understand you had a great matchup, a classic old time with a lot of wrestling show flavor on Friday night against Pascack Valley.
We did. We had a great night over at TV. Too bad you missed it. You would have seen there was barely a little space in the stands for you, but we would have found a place for you.
Yeah.
Tommy's guys, the Indians, wrestled great, and it was a great match. It was a good night for wrestling. The crowd was into it. 2 overtime matches, a whole bunch of matches came down to the buzzer. It seemed like every weight class there was either a county placer or someone who's going to place in districts. And it just felt like what wrestling's supposed to be about. It was good stuff. We had a good time, and showed me our guys were up for it. They wrestled well. Valley just wrestled better, and I think they're probably pretty excited about the postseason coming up.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it too. And there's such gracious hosts over at Pascack Valley. Like tonight, I was over there, as Tom mentioned, and they were selling T-shirts, and my proclivity toward graft, I asked for a T-shirt, and Tom said maybe the nicest thing that anybody's ever said to me since 1986. He goes, "What are you, a medium? A medium, Tommy? I haven't been a medium since 5th grade."
So, I think I got you a large, right?
Yes.
You gonna use that to clean your car?
Yeah, no, it's so great. My belly button. You know when you can see the outline of a fat guy's belly button when he wears a shirt that's too tight? Also joining us, I wish I had some witty repartee, but I haven't seen a North Bergen wrestling match since Pal Park wrestled in the districts there in 1989. So, Ryan Burnett, how you doing?
Hola, what's going on? Excited for sectionals.
Yes. And then, last but not least, is the Pope of Bergen County Wrestling, a guy not really worried about the local scene. He's worried about what's going on in the national scene. And and Donnie Spataro, I take issue with Flow Wrestling having Bergen Catholic number 2 in the country. I have a problem with that. I would like to make an announcement after you say your hellos.
Yes, Your Holiness. I'm sorry, guys. Hold on. Yes, Your Holiness. Yes. Okay, thank you. Yes. Okay, God bless you, too. God bless you, Holiness. Hey, guys, what's up? What's going on? Sorry, had to take that call. Direct from the Vatican. What's up, gentlemen?
What was he saying? That St. Ed's definitely deserves to be number 4 behind Bergen Catholic, but this is a big announcement.
He wanted an answer about what happened this weekend.
Yeah. Well, here is the answer.
Tell the truth, Donnie. Wasn't that someone from St. Joe's trying to get into the state tournament last minute? Come on.
An inside joke here.
I missed being on this show the last few weeks.
Yeah, we definitely miss you too. Now, Donnie, are you ready for this?
Kept me up.
Are you ready for this huge announcement, Donnie? NorthJerseySports.com, the preeminent power, the only wholly locally owned and operated daily source for high school sports news in North Jersey, is starting a brand new feature. We are going to do national wrestling rankings right here. And I am about to unveil the number 1 team in all of the nation for high school wrestling. It's Bergen Catholic. How about that?
Wow. Jesus, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, you have as much credit as the other polls, so why not?
Yeah,
A bunch of guys just sitting around doing polls, so why not?
Yeah. I feel like I have tremendous amount of credibility to pull this thing off. I'm still working on number 2, but I do know that number 1 is Bergen Catholic. All right, we are going to talk about the state sectional wrestling tournament all night on this edition of the Wrestling Show. We will have 2 outside guests on it. Our panel of in-house experts will break down the rest. We're stepping out of the footprint of North Jersey sports once again as we bring in Stephan Zichella. He's the head coach of West Orange Wrestling. He's going to help us break down North 1 Group 5, although Ryan Burdett, also an expert in that, as North Bergen is the number 1 seed. And we're also going to talk to Fairlawn's Shane DeLuca. The Cutters are number 3 in North 1 Group 4. We will get his thoughts as well going into the state sectional tournament. But let's get right to our first guest, a guy who has never been on this air before. So it is a pleasure to welcome in for the first time on the Wrestling Show. He is Stephan Zichella. Coach, thanks for taking a minute on the Wrestling Show.
No problem, man. I'm excited to be on the air with you guys.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you, too, because this is shaping up to be you're in one of the most competitive brackets that were just released here, and I say that because I don't know who the favorite is. We've talked a little bit last week with Ryan Burdett, our guy here, and North Bergen is the number 1 seed. You guys are number 2, but it would be very surprising. Well, I don't know. You tell me how you feel. I mean, this bracket there's no clear-cut favorite. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm looking at all the top 5 teams, and each one of them has won a state sectional, in the past decade or so. And obviously North Bergen having a great one against PCTI match in the finals last year, and the year before North Bergen winning it. 2012 we won it. Clifton had been dominant, in between. So it just looks like it's shaping up to be exactly like you said, a real competitive section, and any team can do it. And it's we're really excited to. I think everyone was closely following the PowerPoints and the placement, and now that it's out, now it's official. We're starting to prepare to see, who's going to come out on top, and a really exciting time for the wrestling season.
Okay, Ryan, here's your opportunity now. What's the bet?
No bet here. What Coach can't say is, about his team. He's got a very dangerous team. On paper, some would argue they're probably the best team in the section on paper. I know Coach can't say that, but they're top to bottom. They're pretty good. They're working hard. I know they got a bunch of guys over there doing extra work with our boy Petey. They got a nice end of the lineup there. They got some beasts from 82 all the way up to heavyweight. And then they scatter some really talented kids with Moreno between 26 and 32, and the Little Rawls brother around 38. They're just one of those teams where you try to find some holes, and even when you find a hole, you look below it, there's somebody there. You look above it, there's somebody there, and that's the reason they're the 2 seed in this bracket. It's because it's hard to find points. So they're having a really nice year, and looks like they're healthy, and they've come together. I know they've had some injuries around this time that kind of hampered them, but they look ready to go.
Wow, you did that masterfully. Did you hear that? Coach Kelly, he just put the whammy on you. You're the favorite. You got to win this thing.
Yeah, Coach Burdett is trying to boost my confidence here, but to be honest with you, we're looking at one match at a time, and if you asked me the same question, I would say North Bergen is the absolute favorite. I mean, the depth that they have is very impressive. And, they got guys in their lineup, and it's interchangeable. You got guys with winning records that move around up and down the weight class. They're hard to predict what they're going to do, who's going to show up, and who's going to wrestle every single match. But the bottom line is, they're well coached. They're in great shape. And to be honest with you, I think North Bergen's a favorite, but I think nipping at their heels is a PCTI team that's, the returning champs, and they have some pretty talented wrestlers themselves. So I would assume that is going to be an exciting semifinal if they get past Clifton. So that to me sounds like a real good test, and we'd have our hands full as well with Livingston. So any way you look at it, it's going to be, as you described, it's going to be an exciting sectional tournament, probably the most exciting of all the groups. And as far as there's a quarterfinal match that you got to watch out for, and two very, very, very close semifinals.
Yeah, Mike, we need a tiebreaker here. Being that I don't know anything about wrestling, so I am ill-equipped to break the tie. You are in the know, and these two guys are putting the kibosh on each other. So what do you make of this break?
Well, they did a good job breaking it all down. I do like to talk about how good PCTI is. I think they're going to have some guys that are going to come back into the lineup that have been out of the lineup, and that always throws things off a little bit, because when you start looking at scores, and what happened in the past, you can kind of throw that out the window when you get, new guys in the mix that have been there before. So it really does. I really agree with Coach. I think it's the most wide open of our brackets that we're going to talk about tonight, which makes it exciting for the fans. So we're pumped about that. But Coach, what I wanted to say to you is, what do you think about being on the road so much? Because being at home in the sectionals, especially when you do get big crowds, it makes a big difference. So how do you approach that with your team, and how do you think it will affect your team down the stretch?
Well, to be honest with you, we really like our home environment that we create. It's pretty spectacular. So I think that's important. That's to our advantage. With our environment and the momentum that we gained, and a sport like wrestling, it's not as momentum based, but when you can generate some, it could have an impact on high school athletes. So, but to be honest with you, North Bergen has a really good environment, and we took one. I actually ended practice today with talking about the sectional tournament, and I said Kyle Snyder said that and obviously we know him as an Olympic and multi-world champion. He said that winning the world championship this past summer against the pound-for-pound best wrestler in Sajulev, he said the only thing that would have made it better is if he would have beat him in Russia. So I told my kids, I said, you know what? It would be fantastic for us to beat North Bergen in North Bergen and silence their fans. But the reality is that's easier said than done. They have Coach Burdett and Maeda. They do an unbelievable job with their program, and it's always a big match when we wrestle them. And if we can get them there to North Bergen, it'd be fun to be a part of that, and memory that no one will forget. So we're hoping to make that happen, and them having the home gym advantages is certainly to their advantage. And we don't want to take that bus ride, man. We get lost in those tight roads in North Bergen in that rush hour. So believe me, man, it's not an easy trip for us.
Oh, it'll be snowing, and your bus will be sliding down the hill, water main break on 46th Street.
That's right. Bus lag. We're going to suffer from bus lag. That's what we'll suffer from.
No doubt about it. Yeah, well, I think, you know what? I'll save you from that, because you got me so excited talking about the whole thing that if it is number 1 North Bergen against number 2 West Orange in the North 1 Group 5 state sectional final, NorthJerseySports.com is going to pick up the tab, and we're going to do the whole thing in Russia.
Nice.
I'd like that.
Let me get this.
Coach mentioned, I'm sorry, but like Coach mentioned too, the other team that I have to give a little bit more credit to that I didn't last week, after I looked at them closer and closer, is Livingston. They're having a pretty nice year, and they have some talented upper weights, and they have some real talented lower weights with the Petrillo brothers. So that's like, if you're looking for a team that maybe nobody really saw coming, and last year they certainly were not ready to compete in the sectionals. This year I think they are, and that's probably one of those teams that when you say, like, everybody looks at the bracket, and PCT sticks out because they're the returning champ and they have some big time studs, in North Bergen and West Orange because they're highly ranked. But I think Livingston is one of those teams that could be a sleeper here in this bracket. And also on the 4 and the 5, Clifton and PCT, they wrestle tomorrow and they wrestle Monday. Tomorrow they're wrestling for the league title, and in Clifton, and then no matter the outcome, Monday they're wrestling in PCT for the quarterfinal round.
Yeah, so, this is when it gets good. Do you have another one? I got one more question I want to ask, but I'll ask you first. You have anything else?
I don't. I had a couple in there, but he answered them all. So go ahead, Coach.
All right.
Corey, take it away.
Yeah, so the last thing I want to ask you is, what do you think of the 8-team brackets now? I mean, on this show here over years past, we had made the case for it. Now it's a reality. How do you think it plays out? Give us your thoughts on your bracket. Obviously, you're in one of the most competitive ones, but overall across the state, do you like the 8 teams?
Personally, I do. There was a couple years that I thought we and PCTI did not make the bracket, and we could have beaten the eventual champ. But I do. I think it gives programs a little something to be excited about. They used to take the top 16 teams, or in most sports they take the top 16 teams. But to be honest with you, it feels good to be a part of that postseason competition. And let me tell you something. Nowadays, with the way things are set up, we have Seton Hall Prep in our conference, in our county, and we have Del Barton in our district. So this is really the only championship that we could really vie for this year. And if we were that 7 or 8 team, it would just add that much more excitement to the season. And don't be surprised if you see a couple, 7 and 8s, give a good run and give a good match. And I think even as important is that it doesn't give the advantage to the first or second seed. Every team has to wrestle on that Monday. We used to wrestle, it was rough. We would all have to wrestle on that Tuesday. Someone would have a bye and watch, the 2 teams battle it out. And 20 minutes later, you'd have to wrestle. So it levels the playing field and gives a couple teams, something to look forward to. And that's always great for our sport. So that's why I like the having 8 teams in the tournament.
Yeah, not to mention you get a couple good matches in, too, for what's to come on the individual side. That doesn't hurt either.
Nope.
Yep. Well, Stephan Zichella, it was nice to meet you here tonight on this edition of the Wrestling Show. And if you pull off the road victory in the North 1 Group 5 State Sectional Final against our beloved Ryan Burdett and the Fighting North Bergen Bruins, we're going to have you back on the show just to rub it in a little bit. How about that?
Let me tell you, I would love that. Not to rub it in, but maybe a little bit. But I would love to enjoy that championship. But thanks for having me on the air. Wish everybody the best of luck in competition, and obviously North Bergen, Coach Burdett. Wish you all the best of luck until the finals. All right.
Thanks for coming on, Coach. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Coach, that was
all right, guys.
All right, interesting stuff there with Stephan Zichella. Good to have him on. A new voice on the Wrestling Show, and gave us some very good information there. Let's continue our trip around the brackets here in the State Sectional Wrestling Tournament, and let's move into, one of our in-house experts' domain here. Let's go to North 1 Group 2, which leads us to you, Mike Att, and don't only talk about Westwood.
Come on now. All right, let's talk about the teams that are the best teams, Let's talk about High Point. They're number 8 in the state, and they're sitting at the top looking pretty, 35.1 power points. They will be the home team throughout, and everything that has to happen goes through them. Newton is hoping this is their year to maybe challenge them. They had a close dual meet with them, but they still have a little work to do to close the gap. They are the 2 seed. And, Kittatinny was the 3 seed in the pre-seed just based on power points. But, we had some jumping going on for people who don't know how it works. When they go through the order of power points, if someone directly behind you beat you head-to-head, they get to jump over you. So Jefferson beat Kittatinny, which makes Jefferson the 3 and knocks Kittatinny to the 4. And then Westwood is next, but since we beat Kittatinny, we jump over them. So we were going to wrestle them at 4-5 no matter what. And instead of us having to drive out there, well, they got to drive out to us.
Oh, boy.
So it makes things a little bit interesting. Yeah. And you know what? It's not like driving to Dumont or something. That's a ride. So you're kind of happy when you find out that there's an hour and a half that you don't have to spend both ways on a bus.
I think I've told this story so many times, but it's always worth it, because back in the days of MapQuest, when I was working for a paper in Passaic County, Pompton Lakes had to go wrestle at Kittatinny. I went to cover the match, and literally it said down dirt road over one-lane bridge to Kittatinny. So, but Mike, you said you have wrestled Kittatinny this year. Anything interesting happened in that match?
Actually, it was really cool. We wrestled them Saturday. We had a quad with Fairlawn, Emerson Partridge, and Kittatinny. We had some really good wrestling going on. And, who knew that Kittatinny match was going to determine who's taking a ride and that we're going to wrestle each other again. So it was a very close match, a lot of back and forth. And, of course, when you have to wrestle somebody just a little over a week later, it makes it pretty interesting. Mm-hmm. But we did have an interesting incident, so it's funny you asked that question. So we had a situation at 197, which I also think is a good, kind of a talking point for people that are listening to the show. The weight classes, when they go up 2 pounds, it's really not, they call it a growth allowance, but it really makes the weight class a new number, which is important because they had a guy who weighed in at 197.0, which qualifies him for 197 and 220, but they tried to they bumped him up to heavyweight, which is a no-no, and wound up being a whole big thing with refs and conference calls and all kinds of stuff, and they decided to wrestle the match. The Kittatinny kid pinned our kid, and by the time we turned it around, got to 106, by the time we got to 113, we finally had the phone call confirming that match never should have happened. So,
Mike, for the audience, what did that guy that weighed in at 197 exactly? What would he have had to have weighed to qualify for 285?
He would have had to be 197 point something, because that would have put him over the 195 threshold, which is 197.
So he could have been 197.1 and qualified for heavyweight, correct?
He could have, if they did. This gets really complicated, though. We had a 2 pound allowance, which you are allowed to, by rule, you're allowed to say, we refuse the pound allowance. But you have to do that at the scale. They didn't do that either. So it got a little heated because Coach John Gill sort of thought he knew the rule. And, I don't blame him for being a little confused. The rules are hard to read sometimes, and maybe he got an interpretation from somebody that was a little off. But, if anyone knows Coach Gill, he's very animated, and we got into a very heated and interesting discussion. And anyone who is getting a pin out of a match and then finds out they're giving up 6 points is not going to be so thrilled, I guess. So things got kind of interesting, and who knows, maybe it adds a little extra juice to their ride back to Westwood.
So that was a 12-point swing, and what did you win the match by?
We won by 9, so it was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But of course, you could look at that, like we're trying to explain to our kids. It's not like we should look back and say, "Oh wow, we kind of lost by 3." Not really, because the kid shouldn't have wrestled there. He would have wrestled against Benny Dada, and that would have been a very, very close match. They're both pretty talented, and who knows where that match goes. And instead of having a really talented kid bumping up to heavyweight, they would have just had their regular heavyweight, and then maybe that would have been a different outcome against our regular heavyweight. And of course, it changes the way you do all your matchups.
Yep.
When you look at a weigh-in sheet, you make decisions on coin toss and everything based on the weights. So when someone does something sort of out of the realm of possibilities, it throws everything off. It's not just the points on the scoreboard at the end.
Yep. Also looking around
so
the
we're
bracket.
Looking at,
go ahead.
Yeah. I'm looking at a good match between the two of us. To be honest, I think it's going to be another good match, and I don't see the other matches being very competitive because Hills at High Point is not interesting really, and Glen Rocco and Jefferson is not a very good match either, and Ramsey at Newton same. But when we get to the semis. Jefferson Newton will be a great match, and the winner of that I really think is going to have a good match with High Point. I know High Point's ranked 8th in the state, but they do have some holes, and they do seem to have 1 or 2 regulars out of the lineup, so you never know. Somebody might have a shot this year to knock them off. They won last year, and real good team, real good program.
Yep. interesting. We should just mention a good job by Pascack Hills to get in at number 8. They get the unenviable task of driving up to High Point, and Glen Rock too. Good job by them. The co-op program with Saddlebrook, they got the number 6 seed. A lot of West Jersey heavy here, which means it's going to be tough for any of the locals to advance.
It is. And it's West Jersey heavy, and when Corey, when you look at the numbers, because that's what we do sometimes, there are like 5 teams here, including Westwood. If you were to look at the top 8 teams in our group across the state, 5 of the 8 teams are right in our section. It's kind of brutal because, you look at the PowerPoints, you realize we're a 1 seed or a 2 seed almost every other place in Group 2. And that's, that goes for Kittatinny and Jefferson and stuff like that. So, yeah, it just happens to be pretty deep right now.
Yeah, I wonder if High Point's going to whip out the hay bales and let the chickens run free, as they used to back in the day for Pascack Hill's arrival. All right, that's North 1 Group 2 in a nutshell. Let's move over to North 1 Group 3, which brings in our resident expert, Tommy Gallione. His Indians are the number 2 seed, will be home all the way through to the final. Should they get there, they might have to travel. The road to the championship might just run through Sparta, another West Jersey team. But, Tommy, your kids are wrestling tough and seem to be, I don't know your lineup well enough to say that you're injury-free, but it looked like you had a pretty solid squad out there tonight. Just talk about the Indians going in here.
Yeah, thanks for jinxing us. No, right now we are,
Wait.
We're injury-free right now. We're pretty healthy. We're wrestling well. Kind of like Mike said, there was a bunch of changes in Group 3 as well, just like in Group 2 when the PowerPoints initially came out on Sunday afternoon or Sunday night. We were tied for first with Sparta, and then down the line you had, Garfield was at 6, and now they're at 5, and then Paramus had beaten them at 7. So originally you thought, okay, Paramus was going to maybe move up to 6, but Garfield was tied in PowerPoints with West Milford, just like we were tied with Sparta. And kind of like Mike said, the criteria is head-to-head first. If you don't have any head-to-head, then they take your overall PowerPoints for all your matches throughout the year. And actually with us in Sparta, what happened was we were both tied at 30. Sparta ended up with 28.1 overall PowerPoints. We ended up with 27.9 something. So that's how they ended up getting the first seed. We ended up falling to second. And then that same type of shift happened at 5 and 6 with West Milford and Garfield. So then that kind of kept Paramus down at 7. Fairly deep bracket. I mean, not as deep as Mike's. I mean, I look at Group 2, and there are some, we wrestled a few of those teams in Group 2 there, and, it's a loaded bracket. You have Sparta, the defending champs, coming back as the 1 seed. Us moving up into 2 with, hopefully a matchup with Montville on Wednesday night to determine who will go out to Sparta. And then down at the bottom you have, Paramus, who traditionally is always a tough team, who we'll take on Monday. They got some tough kids in the middle of that lineup, so it'll be interesting. I think, I think right now, if you're looking at it, I think the top 3 kind of have separated themselves a little bit from the others, but, there's still some tough teams in the bottom half of this bracket, so.
Yeah, and for teams like Riverdale and Garfield, that's the 4-5 match. I mean, it would be tough if they got to the semifinals, obviously, to go to Sparta, but winning that match kind of makes a team's season. You win a state sectional tournament match. I'm sure it's going to be a great atmosphere at Riverdale. Garfield's had a real good year, and if one of those two can come through and then go take a shot at Sparta, why not? But,
exactly. Like Riverdale last year beat us, and they went out to Sparta, and, they got beat by Sparta. But, Sparta is very good. They lost a few upperweights from last year. They have the 3 Stewart brothers in the middle of their lineup that are good. They have Ganat at 195. That's tough. But, yeah, like you said, if Riverdale or Garfield can get that win, hey, you know what? You take the ride out to Sparta, and you see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know, right? You still got to wrestle. So it'll definitely be interesting. Definitely be an interesting bracket.
Any truth to the rumor that you will make your kids wear mittens from here on out to keep all appendages accounted for before the state tournament?
No truth to that rumor. Hey, we got to worry about Ultapan first before we get to next week. So we'll deal with Ultapan on Friday, and then we'll focus on Paramus.
Nah, don't worry about Old Japan.
Yeah, okay.
All right, that's there. And we made a slight mention earlier in the show about what's going on in non-public North A. We found out earlier this week that St. Joseph's will not be included. They did not get in their waiver in time as far as matches wrestled against New Jersey teams, so it leaves an empty spot. Another empty spot. There's 2 buys. Number 1 is Del Barton. Number 2 is Seton Hall Prep. Number 3 is St. Peter's Prep. And then the number 1 team in the nation, according to NorthJerseySports.com, Bergen Catholic, Donnie, number 4. What's going on here?
We just didn't wrestle enough of. We have a lot of teams that were wrestling this week, but it was after the cutoff Jersey teams, and we didn't wrestle enough Jersey teams to acquire enough power points. So we wound up in the 4th seed, which will have. It's pretty ironic. We have to wrestle Don Bosco Friday night for a league match, required league match, and then by St. Joe's not being in the state sections, Bosco moves up a seed, and we will have them again on Monday. So we wrestled Don Bosco on Friday and Monday.
Bergen Bosco, catch the fever. So, how are you looking at it? How many in a row have you won group titles?
7.
So, how does this, and your kids have wrestled such big matches across the country. Do you feel like maybe you got to pump them up a little bit to, hey, this is still a big deal?
No, it just, these kids are like lunch pail kids. They come to work, they come to wrestle. You really don't have to give them any type of rah-rah speech or anything like that. They're just a good group of kids that they, when it's time to wrestle, they show up. They're not required to psych up or anything like that. They just, they go to work.
What do you see as team, if you took yourselves out of it? I mean, Del Barton, obviously the number 1 seed. Have you wrestled them this year?
No, we have not wrestled Del Barton this year. A good possibility that we could be wrestling them in the semis of the state sections. That'll be the first time we meet up, and they're a very good team. They're ranked in the top 20 in the nation, and they have a couple hammers. They have 2 state champs on the team. They have Patrick Glory, that's currently ranked number 1 in the nation. So they got a bunch of hammers. So we'll see what happens there if we both meet up in the semis, which we'll have to travel this entire state sections. We will be on the road traveling if we win from round to round.
Yep, yeah. It's anybody else in the bracket? I mean, take yourselves out of it. Other teams worth mentioning? I mean, St. Peter's Prep always has a good program.
Yeah, I mean, listen, everyone's competitive that's in there. Even Paramus Catholic's competitive. And, yes, like you just mentioned, St. Peter's is competitive also. At one time they were ranked top 20 in the state. So it's a competitive section, and we'll see what happens, who comes out on top.
Yep. I will lend my expertise to the non-public North A. Take Bergen Catholic, lay the points. Let's move on to North 1, Group 1. We don't have an expert to go through this, but we all know these teams. At least the only one we really need to know is top-seeded Emerson Park Ridge. And Ryan, you've been out of the loop here a little bit because we've been going with the other guys, but you know a lot of these, being a Park Ridge Recreation member and coach in that system, I mean, this is Emerson's to lose, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This is, for them, I guess, they've had a really good year. Probably right now, and not to disrespect the group, they're just above and beyond right now. And let's see what they can do when they take care of this. Let's see what they can do down in, in the group championships, because I think right now that's where it's at for them, and I'm sure that's where their focus is. There's a couple other nice teams in here. Cedar Grove always has a pretty good program. They have such low numbers, and yet the guy always puts out there a good team. He's impressive. Butler has a couple good individuals. Bariso at 106, the Whibley brothers in there. Saddlebrook has had a nice bounce back. They're the 3 seed. They're, now that they're split from Glenrock, and both teams are in the playoffs, with Saddlebrook as the number 3 here and Glenrock 6th in their group. And then Pompton Lakes, another team that Coach Mahoney always has them ready to go, and it's a small school. And I think that you would know a lot more about Pompton Lakes if Emerson wasn't around. So they always seem to be in the mix. So, again, some good teams in there, but right now Emerson's on a different level. And I think you'll see the Cabo Owls making a march to the group finals.
Yeah, and nice of you to wait about 20 minutes in the show to point out my mistake about Saddlebrook Glenrock no longer being together. But hey, listen,
you're used to some co-ops staying together for 30 years, so I mean, only expect.
Yeah, I noticed in the official bracket it says Emerson Borough, so I don't see a slash and a PR anywhere attached. All right, that's North 1, Group 1. Emerson, the obvious favorite there, and maybe the favorite to win the overall Group 1 state championship. We will see how it plays out. We have one more bracket to do, so that gives us the opportunity to welcome in our second guest of the evening. Talking to us about North 1, Group 4 is Fairlawn head coach Shane DeLuca. Coach, thanks for joining us here on The Wrestling Show.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you are the number 3 seed in North 1 Group 4. You will host number 6 Mount Olive. I guess the bland question is, how are you feeling? How's the health going into this state sectional tournament for the Cutters?
We're pretty strong right now. We got a couple guys fighting through some stuff. That comes with the territory. If you make it through a full season without a bump or a bruise, it's pretty rare. So
yep.
We got to fight through some of those things and just push through it.
How about this bracket overall? I mean, Fairlawn, it's always interesting because when you talk about in other sports where the league that you guys wrestle in, you're in a Passaic County league. Now you look at this North 1 Group 4. You have Old Tappan in it. It's the only other Bergen County team. You got Wayne Valley in it. It's really the only other close team in proximity. And then you got a bunch, some traveling to do for everybody in the bracket. So do you like it better not being in with everybody you know, or would you rather have a little bit more familiarity?
The travel part, I could do without. Obviously, putting kids on a bus for an hour plus, they get a little drowsy and groggy, and then you got to get them off the bus, get through the weigh-in and all that stuff. So from that standpoint, obviously, that's not an advantage. I do like wrestling the out-of-the-area teams now with the new region alignment that they have set up so far. I mean, it's different than what we're used to. We normally wrestle the area towns and things of that nature, but now, we branched out. This year our schedules obviously changed quite a bit. And I do like seeing the competition from different areas. That's been a bonus. It keeps our kids fresh, and obviously seeing different styles and things like that only prepares you for later on, in my opinion. So from that standpoint, I think it's good too.
Mike what do you want to know about the Fairlawn Cutters or North 1 Group 4 State Sectional Team Wrestling Tournament?
All right, Shane, I just want to give the fans a little breakdown, the seating order, the matchups, and what do you think? I know you don't like to predict things too much, but maybe who you think the common sense favorites would be in the first round.
I think the way that it fell, worked out the way it should have. West Morris obviously has risen as one of. I think they just moved up to the top 20 team of the state.
I saw that today.
So obviously they become a force to reckon with. We had a battle with Roxbury. Some things didn't go our way. So hopefully we can get through this Mount Olive matchup and we get another shot at Roxbury. That's kind of what we've been looking forward to. If that plays out, Passaic Valley's tough. We got them tomorrow night in a duel for that's a league match. So we'll see what they have. And they beat Mendham by 1. So obviously they're no walkover either. Benvenuto does a good job getting his team prepared. So our bracket overall is pretty solid. From top to bottom, I don't think there's any clear cut favorite. it should be interesting. I mean, it all comes down to the matchups, obviously, and winning tosses and things like that become real big. And I'm hoping we can make a run.
Yep. Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, actually, and not to get ahead of ourselves, but in looking at the bracket, obviously, I'm in your case, I'm looking ahead to the semifinal, which, again, if you're fortunate enough to beat Mount Olive and Roxbury and PB, should be a battle down bottom. If it does end up to be Roxbury, did you feel? I looked at that box score. Did you feel like there were enough matches where you could make up some ground? It was about a 10, 15-point match. But did you think there was enough matches there that could maybe swing the other way in your favor?
Yeah, I mean, I wake up many nights thinking about what could have happened there. Obviously, I'm sure you guys go through the same stuff, and what could have really gone our way, or some things just seemed like that was a day where everything kind of just went against us. So, I'm contemplating. I'm saying, maybe it's better if all that stuff happens in one match as opposed to two things going wrong in one match, two things going wrong in another match. It's like, the stuff that happened that day was just crazy. It was, decisions that turned into falls where, I think we got pinned 5 times, and 3 of those matches were all, relatively close. They were, like I said, decisions turned to falls. So that's huge swing points in the match. We battled, and you just can't get pinned. That's the bottom line in those close matches. And when you give up bonus points, that's a determining factor, and that's what happened that day. But moving forward, if we get another crack at them, I think the outcome could definitely be different. There's no doubt about it. But hey, every kid, you're relying on kids that are teenagers. Some days they have a good day, some days they get in a fight with their girlfriend or whatever, and they're not on an A game, and that's what you're dealing with. So. And I'm sure that's every team deals with that. So hopefully we have a good day, and like I said, maybe we can turn things around.
Well, my next question was going to be. I'm sorry. My next question was going to be, what does Shane DeLuca dream about? But since you answered that in your eloquent reply to the last question, I'm just, you've done such a, and we haven't talked to you all year. Just talk about some of your guys here. I mean, obviously Dylan Cedeno is the headliner, and he's shooting for gold in Atlantic City and all that stuff. But you rebuilt this program back to where you expect to be in this position every year, high seed in the state sectional tournament. A great job. So you talk about some of those kids who maybe don't get any ink, but have been key to, you can't build a whole program around one guy. And who are some of the others?
I'll just go from, I guess, down low to the top as quick as I can.
Yep.
Obviously, the addition of the 2 little Mata twins have really kind of stepped onto the scene, and Nikki is the little heavier one that wrestles kind of with Cedeno. There's matches they both weigh in at 13. One a bump, obviously, but a lot of times, for the big tournaments, he's been going, Dylan's been going down to 13, and Nikki's been jumping up. And, I was really impressed with him. Obviously, in the counties he placed, and the Sam Cali tournament, he was wrestling real well all weekend, but he's giving up weight. And, that makes a difference when you get to those top-notch guys. But he never really backs down. He had a real good match with the kid Teresa from Montville at the Sam Cali tournament, and Anthony ended up with a bad draw, the smaller one, the 106-pounder. He ended up with a bad draw in the first round of the counties, so he didn't really get a shot at, making a name for himself there. But he just knocked off Fernandez of Westwood. So he's coming on strong. And then you move up, we've got the other Mata, the oldest Mata, the 32-pounder. He's having a really nice year again. Following up off of what he did last year. He ended up 5th in the region, and he's been solid pretty much throughout. Mike Chachinsky, AJ Puerto, those middleweight guys. AJ's coming off surgery, so he hasn't really been full strength yet. He's in every match he wrestles. pretty solid guy. Never really gives up bonus points. He's just got to go over the hump here down the stretch. Hopefully, he picks up the big win in the next couple matches to get him going for tournament time. And then Gabe Perez, who's kind of like, quietly just goes out and does his thing. He started wrestling in high school, so he doesn't really have any rec experience, which is even more remarkable. He's third in the county at 152 pounds. He won our opening season tournament, the Cutter Classic. He's pretty solid, strong. Stronger than Ox. Everybody kind of comments when he weighs in, like, how did he make 152? And he's just, he's very lean, very strong, quiet, works hard, does his thing. When we go up, the next guys, we got Ben Liss, Joe Cavino. Cavino came back from an injury from football season pretty late in the the beginning of the year, so he didn't get a crack at the counties or anything like that, but he's coming on strong. He's only had one loss so far. And Ben Liss has been, kind of like his sidekick, pretty much doing damage just as well. Then you move up to Ryan Rue, who's our senior 3-sport athlete, just really super athletic kid. Doesn't make many mistakes. He just does what he does best each and every match, and he's in great shape. So that goes to his benefit. And then, Shapiro up top has been our most solid guy there. So from top to bottom, we've got some solid kids. So that's been,
and you got all the weight classes full. All the weight classes filled.
Yeah.
That gives you a leg
we're
up.
Fortunate there. We're a big school, so.
Yep. And the the outstanding leadership of the man in charge of the athletic department over there, Corey Robinson. As I'm sure he's intimately involved with the wrestling program during hockey season.
Day in and day out, absolutely. I'm sure
Ryan, anything else, Ryan?
No. Good luck, Shane. Should be a good group.
Mike what do you think?
Guys.
Yeah. All right.
I think the Cutters are ready to go. I saw them in person on Saturday. They did a nice job on us. They beat Kittatinny. They gave Emerson some good matches. Good luck, Shane. Ready to go.
Yeah, and since you're in a bracket with all those wacky schools, I'm rooting for you. I'm not rooting for Roxbury. I don't even know where that is. So
I appreciate it, Corey.
Yep, Shane. Good luck, and we will talk.
Hopefully, we can make a run.
Yeah, we'll talk to you. We'll talk to you during the States. Good luck.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Good stuff there with Shane DeLuca. I think we have said all that needed and needs to be said about the state sectional wrestling tournament. The only thing left to do is see how it all plays out and then get back on the air here next week with more to report. We will see you next week on The Wrestling Show.
Follow the leader.